Welcome everyone to our weekly live Q&A. Feel free to throw your questions in the chat. I will answer them as I see them come up. If you're catching us on the replay or our YouTube channel, you can still put your questions in the comments. We will cover those in the following week's live Q&A session then. I hope everyone's been doing well. Topic today I wanted to start with is the discussion of sustainable weight loss, essentially long-term plans. One of the things that a lot of people struggle with, they know what they should be doing, but they're figuring out a way to do it consistently enough to create long-term results. It's not lack of information, it's just approaches that will work for that duration. The challenge is most of the energy, focus, and plans out there are for very rapid, short-term weight loss changes that the results you get are a lot. You get drastic change in a shorter period of time, but the demands of that program aren't allowable for continuing for a very long period of time, because either the training is too intense, the time commitment of the training is too much, the food restrictions for one reason or another are just unsustainable without being in complete misery or missing out on constant things all the time. And the other factor is just being in drastic output or drastic reduction of intake for your calories creates a lot of negative metabolic responses in the body trying to get to a point where it's not rapidly losing weight. One of the challenges that a lot of people don't realize and understand is that rapid weight loss, especially for the body, is seen as a bad thing. Your body doesn't understand that it's, 20, 30, 50 pounds overweight. It doesn't understand that you're unhappy with the way your body looks or feels. It just knows that this is its current weight. Weight loss ancestrally usually means that there's some sort of issue with the food supply going on, and your body has metabolic adaptations to respond to that shortage so you can survive. So the biggest thing with these plans is we don't really want to cause that reaction to happen. We'd rather have something smaller and sustainable. So one, behaviorally, it's easier to stick with, but two, we're not causing that negative metabolic response. So things that we kind of want to look at and work on to keep you consistent, not going through rebounds, not falling off because holidays came around or work or other aspects of life changed. What things can we be successful with? So the first thing is kind of looking at your mindset, letting go of that all or nothing philosophy. The idea that I have to train intensely every single day of the week, or I have to completely restrict every aspect of my diet all day, every day, isn't going to be realistic for a long period of time. Yes, you can do these for short bursts. That's the reason why you see the 30, 60, 90-day challenges. But after 90, that's really the limit for most people. Even, intense restrictive sports like bodybuilding, the diet phase is usually 90 days at most, unless they overbulked in the off season. But even then, it's usually 120 days at most for that. Because anything more than that, you create too many problems to overcome and face. Understanding with the mindset that one bad meal or day doesn't mean that you failed your plan. We just continue on with our appropriate behaviors the next meal, the next day. So it's not, because work had an event and I had, too much to eat there, that I give up and dinner's a loss, the next day's a loss, and so on. It's just, okay, I could have done better, but the next meal is another opportunity for success, rather than seeing it as a reason to completely give up and not continue with your pursuit. Understanding that your progress is built on what is about like 80% of your core weekly behavior. It's not about being 100% on point. If you can be 80% adherent with the pursuit of strength training 2 to 3 days a week, daily movement of some form of kind. It doesn't even have to be in a one singular 30-minute period, just moving regularly throughout the day. And your food choices and caloric portion control is on point 80% of the time, you're going to see progress in the big picture of things. It may take a little bit longer, but we're not going to see progress just because of a few missteps here and there. So just understanding that, one meal is not going to ruin your progress. A crazy weekend doesn't ruin your progress as long as you get back to your habits as soon as it's over. That's the biggest thing that matters there is how you react afterwards to that misstep, mistake, or just simply like, I decided to splurge. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that as long as it's kept to a singular instant and we're not letting it become the new norm. That's the biggest aspect. Nutrition habits, once we've accepted that mindset thing, you want things that you can keep consistent and repeatable for yourself. The biggest things that we look at is anchoring your meals with a protein source, trying to get around 30 grams or more in with each of your major meals, paired with some sort of vegetable. Then, if needed for satiety, you can look at your carb and your fat sources, still kept in moderate portions, but leading with your protein and your high fiber vegetables, it's going to control your hunger. It's going to control your appetite, not just at that one meal by giving you something with volume but low calories, but it's also actually going to make it easier to control your appetite throughout the rest of the day. Doing this sets up things for more success. You're not going to feel deprived because we're not saying don't eat carbs. We're not saying don't eat this. We're saying have it in a controlled portion. For your carbs, we're usually talking about a cup or so with your meal. Your fats, keeping it to around a tablespoon serving with your meals. If you've done all those, you've done your protein, you've done your vegetables, you've got your carb serving, you did your fat serving, and you still need a little bit more, then we look at adding a little more either vegetable or protein to fill up on, not just more fat and carbs, because those are the things that tend to get us calorically in trouble the most because they're easy to overconsume and they're easy to crank caloric volume up real quick with a little bit of food. But following that protein, vegetable, moderate carb, moderate fat, if you can do that the majority of your meals, it's going to be so much easier to avoid snacking. It's easier just to keep your portions controlled at that particular meal. And you don't have to obsessively track how many calories am I taking and how am I going to do that, because you're just going to naturally be inclined to keep your calories in control. And the beauty is this outline works for special events, things at work, holiday meals, family gatherings, for other things. Following that outline makes it easier to still have and participate in what the family's having, but not overdo it at such an extreme level that we've undone a week's worth of progress in one meal. It's just an easy outline to see and keep good progress going for us. And it works just about anywhere you would go, whether it's a party, a restaurant, work event. The only time it really gets an issue is if for whatever reason there weren't any vegetables made. But we can still practice some control by knowing what my protein is first. We still control the carbs. Maybe we look for more whole ingredient carbohydrates rather than the more processed ones. That's still a good direction to lean in for us. So it just makes it easier to keep that eating in control. And that's what gets us into sustaining a moderate caloric deficit is kind of our next thing that we look at. One of the challenges with most plans is they go heavy restriction, which means heavy caloric deficit. The challenge with that is if you're doing a caloric deficit that's in excess of, for sure, in excess of 500 calories or more a day, you're going to have negative reactions at some point in the near future, if not immediately, depending upon how much food you're used to eating. Um, those large calorie deficits immediately cause that a restrictive mindset, that I'm missing out mindset. It leads to more hunger, and then we end up with burnout. And that's what makes it harder to keep going. If you've already spent all your mental energy trying to be super restrictive, and the problem is that burnout leads into all decisions that we make in the day. So if you've had an aggressive, demanding day at work that's used a lot of your decision-making faculties, and now you've gone home, it's going to be hard to make the right decisions when you're in that extreme deficit. And that's what gets people in trouble, is they end up overdoing it. They make more emotional choices, and then they start getting frustrated and blaming themselves for not following their plan. Whereas if we keep a more moderate deficit, for a majority of our clients, we try and keep to no more than a 250 nutrition deficit on their daily intake. Everything else we try and do through their movement and their exercise. It's still enough to stimulate fat burning, but it's not so much that you're constantly going like, something's missing, I didn't get enough, I need more, especially when we pair it with the focus on protein first, high veggie serving, and then our moderate carb, moderate fat to keep us more full. Doing it that way makes it much easier to keep and sustain without feeling like we're deprived, without feeling like we're starving all the time. Those are things that are hard to keep with very long period of time. So just be mindful that if you're starting to feel deprived, you're starting to feel constantly hungry, your energy is starting to dip, your deficit is too much, and we need to make some adjustments if you have a long journey to go with your weight loss pursuit. The next thing we look at is your strength training. This is really non-negotiable if you want to see good, sustainable progress. The primary reason being is the strength training preserves your muscle tissue during the weight loss phase. If you're not stimulating your muscle tissue when you're trying to lose weight, your body will burn muscle off as well as fat. The problem with that is that makes you less metabolically active, which in turn makes it harder to keep the weight off, because now we're trying to fight the same battle with less in the engine. It makes it much harder to keep seeing progress. It makes it harder to maintain the progress that you've accomplished, because now we've become less metabolically active. You're done with dieting. Maybe you did accomplish your goal. You want to go back to how you were able to do before the diet. The challenge is now your metabolism has been suppressed and lowered from what it was when you started dieting. So you can't go back to the same level of intake that you were doing and not have drastic rebound in your weight, because your metabolism is lower than what it was with your previous eating habits that were maintaining that weight. So that's the biggest mistake that I see for people, is they lose a lot of that weight, but they weren't strength training. They go back to the way they were eating, and the weight skyrockets up. And it's because they lost all that metabolic tissue during that weight loss phase, because they weren't preserving the muscle mass. So we've got to do the strength training. You don't need every day. 2-3 times a week is enough on a consistent basis to sustain, and for a lot of people, even build muscle tissue to make you more metabolically active. Paired with this is our daily movement. This isn't just about doing cardio for the sake of how many calories can I burn in a 30-60 minute time period. This is about getting you moving throughout the day to keep your body metabolically active rather than sedentary and lethargic. What happens a lot of times when we have long bouts of inactivity, so we're sitting at work, we're sitting at home, once we pass that 1-2 hour mark, our resting metabolic rate starts to drastically dip, and we're no longer burning the same amount of calories that it would take to keep us going if we were up and moving about on a more regular basis. So we want you getting up, getting away from the desk from time to time, doing enough to stimulate some movement in the body. You can sit back down again next hour, get up, move around again. Maybe you go for an extra walk at lunch, an extra, maybe a little bit more in the evening time, but just getting you moving throughout the day. This is where like step tracking, things like that come into play. But the biggest thing is just moving more to break up the long bouts of sitting is the biggest impact that we're looking for here to keep your metabolism active. That's what we're looking for. It's not about how many calories can we burn in that 1 30-minute time period. It's about, can we keep your body metabolically active the entire day? One of the next things that people often kind of overlook is recovery when we're trying to lose weight. This is a big thing. Everyone knows that sleep's important, but the challenge is that sleep impacts how well we can metabolize fat. It impacts how easy it is to make food decisions in our day as well. Being well rested means we're starting the day at a good neutral stress point, not already stressed out because we didn't get enough rest. If you wake up and you're already at a stressed out point, we have so much little bandwidth for what else you have to deal with that day before we hit a decision making in the day. So by not being well rested, it's going to inhibit your ability to make better choices when you're presented with those temptations. It's going to inhibit your ability to follow that layout for your meal as far as my protein first, what's my vegetable, then a moderate carb, moderate fat. It's going to be harder for you to follow through and make that decision when you're not rested effectively enough. So all of this kind of build within. This is the reason why sleep and recovery is so important to weight management, because it really can make or break the day because of that. Now, the biggest thing, because we've talked about a lot of things that we're looking at changing, adding, it comes down to kind of the habits, looking at how you're spending your time. Are there things that you're doing currently that are not conducive to what your goals are? That's kind of one of the areas of opportunity where the reason why most of us aren't doing some of these other things we've discussed yet is because we don't have time. So doing some self-assessment, what are you doing currently on a daily, weekly basis that isn't helping you with your greater health, life, well-being pursuits? Those are the areas of opportunity where we can reduce some of those to get more time to do the other things that we need the time for. So the time to do your strength training, the time to get more sleep so we're more appropriately rested, the time to fix and prepare healthier meals. Those are things to look at. Other things as far as like, because we're adding new things that you want to do, pair it with a current habit that is conducive to your health and well-being that you want to keep doing. By pairing those together, it makes it easier to be more successful with that pursuit and adding that new habit into your weekly or daily routine. Again, a lot of times people struggle with a lot of this. It's not because you don't know what you should be doing. It's figuring out, how am I supposed to put all of these things into my life? Because if I had the time and the ability to do it, I'd already be doing it. Sometimes it takes an outside-in perspective. That's one of the biggest things that we work on with a lot of our clients, is looking at those habits, looking at the areas of opportunity to create those changes. So don't feel that you have to struggle with this on your own. We're always happy to help people out. Reach out, let's have a conversation, help you build something that actually fits your life, that you can sustain and keep going and be successful with having that healthier life, to be happy with the way you look, feel, and function. That was a lot. I hope it was helpful for everyone. Just remember, have a great week and stay persistent in your consistent pursuit of health.